I was joking earlier that I'm glad that we came after lunch because we're talking about food. So you've all eaten that delicious spread and hopefully are sated and ready for our presentation. Let me just get my clicker here. All right. All right, so I'm going to start with a question. This seems like the right group for this question. How many of you scour Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, and find these do-it-yourself projects that, yeah, the hands start going up, that you pin and you're very excited about, but then you realize that you don't have the skills in carpentry or painting or jewelry, so it literally just stays pinned for a very long time. Show of hands. Right. Also guilty as charged. And how about those of you who do pin these do-it-yourself projects, but despite the fact that you might not know carpentry, or you might not know painting, or you might not know jewelry, you still go ahead and you do it anyways? Yes, awesome. Okay, so that's where we fall. We advance my slides.
I'll try it. You can keep talking.
So we really see Soom Foods as an example of a do-it-yourself type of project, in which we did not have any prior experience in the industry in which we were starting our company. My name is Shelby. This is my sister Amy, and along with our middle sister Jackie, we started Soom Foods, which is now one of the leading purveyors of tahini in the United States, without having any prior experience in the food industry. What we had was passion. What we had was a deep-seated interest in a delicious product, which we will be talking a lot more about over the course of this presentation, and a core set of beliefs, 6 beliefs, which we'll be talking about today, that helped us to develop our business despite the fact that we didn't have this experience. But before we get into those beliefs, I'm going to turn it over to Amy for a little bit of background about our company.
The story goes that Shelby had a business degree, Jackie married a tahini expert, and I needed a job. It was the spring of 2011. Jackie actually moved to Israel in 2008 and met Omri, her now husband, through a mutual friend, and they were dating. Shelby was living in Jerusalem, working in Israel for a year when, Jackie and Omri were really getting serious. Omri was a tahini distributor. He bought tahini from large manufacturers in Israel and delivered them in a really cool car to restaurants and caterers and salad companies around the country. So obviously, you can imagine, Jackie started eating a lot of tahini. She also luckily shared that tahini with Shelby. See, we didn't grow up eating tahini. Shelby was intrigued. What was this light brown, creamy, delicious product that Omri was selling? We grew up with store-bought hummus, and all tahini was for was hummus, right? Well, Shelby's degree is in entrepreneurial management, so she called me and she said, Amy, I need you to do some market research about tahini. Note, entrepreneurial management. I was just a senior at University of Delaware, and I had no idea what market research even meant. I was studying interpersonal communication, though, so I did what I know how to do best. Start talking, and Googling, and ultimately asking a lot of questions. This tahini was amazing. How do we make it accessible in the United States? Belief number 1.
So belief number 1 is that tahini is amazing. We are encouraged, that's true. We encourage everyone to listen to your discovery process, because that is what it was for us. Another question to the audience. How many of you have had the opportunity to travel to a different city or state or country and try a type of food or see a particular type of jewelry or clothing and wonder, why can't I get that at home? Show of hands, yeah. An example from somebody, perhaps?
Chocolate.
Yeah, go ahead. Crunchers from the Midwest, what are they? They're potato chips. Not just potato chips.
Totally. And this isn't just tahini.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. The rebar, which is frozen yogurt. Yes, exactly. Right. So many examples of experiences that we've had in other places where we've tried something and wanted to find it back at home, but you can't find it. So that's what happened to us with tahini. As Amy was explaining, when we were introduced to tahini by Omri, all of a sudden we started seeing tahini everywhere. In Israel, we saw it. Actually, Rebar was one of our examples. Rebar is a frozen yogurt shop, and they have tahini as a topping for frozen yogurt. I had an Israeli breakfast one morning, and there was shakshuka. Are people familiar with shakshuka? I assumed, but I just wanted to make sure. Shakshuka that had this side of a dip that I thought was peanut butter, and I was dipping it with this really delicious hearty piece of bread, and lo and behold, it's not peanut butter, it was tahini. And I was like, what is this amazing stuff? But the real kicker was, and the picture on the slide, and I apologize, we're having a little bit of difficulty with advancing, so I'm just going to point to you when I want you to change. We're going to stay right here for now. Is when our family first met Omri's family. His mother made a delicious Shabbat meal for our two families when they met. She's a phenomenal cook. And she made a carrot cake for dessert because it is our mom's favorite dessert. Well, she made it parve by using tahini instead of butter. And again, mind blown, what is this delicious product and what do you need? You can use it in both carrot cake and in hummus. So we just started asking all of these questions, and that series of questions really was this really empowering discovery process. We were motivated, we were energized, we wanted to learn more and more and more, and started asking more technical questions, which Amy will get into in just a second. But for me, I really found that discovery process and that craving for wanting to learn more about this product, about this business, was the first indication that we were onto something right, and gave us the motivation and the inspiration that perhaps we should take this seriously and consider incorporating this, series of inquiries into a business. So for all of you out there who have started your own business and have experienced this, you know what I'm talking about. For those of you out there who are thinking about starting your own business and might be, going through this process right now, listen to it, trust it, go with it, and see where it can take you. So belief number 2.
Never stop learning. Know what you don't know and ask a lot of questions. What didn't we know about tahini? Pretty much everything. We learned pretty quickly that it was made of sesame seeds. And what didn't we know about the food industry? Unfortunately, also everything, except we knew we really liked to eat. So we started asking a lot of questions. But more importantly, we worked really hard to find answers. So what tahini was available in the United States? We went to the stores, we checked the shelves, we asked store owners what brands they were carrying, and we asked people what they saw when they were shopping. Which tahini do people even like buying? Well, that was really the interesting question because people couldn't name a brand name. But we asked people, we asked professional chefs, and those answers really gave us the confirmation, well, let's really keep seeing if we can be the one to provide tahini to the States. But even more technical questions, like how do we get it here? Where do we store it? Those are questions that you just need to ask professionals or people that have experience in the industry, and don't be afraid to ask. We use a saying a lot, it's called dumb and young, which I think we're growing out of slowly, but we embrace the fact of what we don't know, and we love to ask people in the industry for their advice. You would be surprised. People share a lot more than you anticipate successful people will share, as we've seen from the stage today. Really accomplished people, glad to share their knowledge with you. But the biggest question was, do Americans even know what tahini is? And unfortunately, most didn't. But these questions really helped us build a business plan. And each time we learned something new, we learned something new about our product, we learned something new about the market opportunity, about the competitive landscape, and ultimately about what this business would really entail. Ask questions, and your answers will really help you guide what the next step might have to be for your business. Slide, please. But what that little business plan does not entail is preparing you for all the problems. There are so many problems when you start a business. So how many people in here, we weren't here at the beginning, are business owners?
Oh, awesome.
What percentage of your time would you say you spend putting out fires? 110%, seriously. It's hardly running a business. It's really just problem solving. And that's something that we learn to embrace and advice that we give often. You have to accept a problem, you have to understand it, and you need to fix it really quickly. An example of this, our first import came in May of 2013. We bought 20,000 pounds of tahini. It took us 11 months to sell through most of it, not all of it. And to give you a little bit of an example, we now sell through almost 40,000 pounds, if not more, every other month. So it seemed like a lot at the time. It wasn't as much as what we hoped to keep selling. But we designed the bottle, we designed the label, the packaging was ugly, we knew we'd have to work on it, but the boxes arrived and they had our manufacturer's logo on it, not our own. We did not even think to ask what box would these bottles be coming in. My mom must have helped me for hours taking an X-Acto knife and cutting out the brand label, right, of the manufacturer so that these boxes had little windows in it instead of our manufacturer's name on it. Well, those boxes obviously didn't last for long. They weren't sturdy. We couldn't sell them. So we bought new boxes, we bought a stamp, and we repackaged every single bottle that we got into a new box. It's really about accepting what your mistake was and fixing it as quickly as possible. I'll give you another example just so you can really empathize, or maybe we can, talk about some problems that you've gone through your startup stages. Our first delivery to a distributor was a couple years into the business, so we were finally delivering 30 buckets at once. We stacked these 30 buckets on a pallet, which is one of those, wooden things that we put on a truck, and we thought we wrapped it great. 10 minutes later, the receiving warehouse calls us and says, your buckets are all over the truck, they're not stacked on the truck, it's a huge mess, we're sending this truck right back to you. And we had never delivered to a distributor before, and our first delivery was a complete mess, literally. Have you ever tried to clean tahini? It's the worst. But we all buckled down, all hands on deck, cleaned up the mess, rented a U-Haul, loaded 30 more buckets onto the U-Haul, and drove it over ourselves. And we said, well, knock, knock, we were here a couple hours ago, please take these buckets now. So mistakes happen, problems come up, don't dwell, find a solution.
Our next belief is
Slide, please.
to do one thing well and commit to that one thing. So for Hanukkah, our dad gave us each this book called The One Thing by Gary Keller. I really recommend it if you're looking for a new business book to add to your repertoire. The One Thing by Gary Keller. And really the hypothesis is that with more focus, and by focusing on one thing, you actually become more productive, more successful, and more efficient across multiple things in your life by just taking time to focus. I know that many of us need that in this day and age. So I will say that, at the beginning when we started our company, we had a vision that tahini would be a staple ingredient in every American pantry. That was what we saw for the potential of our business. But I will be the first to say that we got a little bit distracted. We started selling tahini in these retail jars, a chocolate tahini spread, which is absolutely delicious, and we have samples for you guys to try during a coffee break. We were selling them in big bulk buckets to the food service industry, in these small jars, online and through retailers. And then in 2015, we also launched a line of tahini dips, again, which were delicious and creamy and hummus substitute, but without the chickpeas. And we were scattered. We were running around everywhere. We didn't know where to focus. I can only point towards Amy because I had a newborn at the time, so she was the one who was in these stores demoing these retail dips and trying to make them move, while at the same time taking orders from our restaurant customers and our distributors, and I mean, you can just, I don't know, as I'm saying it, like I'm feeling this energy, you know, like I'm just scattered and a little bit torn. So what I did was I'm kind of the numbers nerd of the company. When I was looking at our books every month, I saw that about 80% of our revenue was coming from the food service industry. Food service meaning restaurants and chefs and the distributors that service those clients. And we were spending about 20% of our time there, which is interesting, right? That magic 80-20 ratio, but it was working against us. You know, so we started asking the question, what if we focused 50% of our time instead of 20%? Or 100% of our time on the food service industry instead of 20%. And so we made a really hard decision at the end of 2015 to discontinue those dips and go all into selling tahini in bulk to the food service industry. We didn't want to discontinue this, but we didn't put any effort on these products. And you know what happened? We doubled our sales in 2016, and we organically started receiving requests from retailers and growing our online retail business because we were focused. So that really started to trickle down to our bottom line. It was a very difficult decision at the time. We had gotten our product in some reputable accounts that we were really excited to work with, but we decided to just dial it back, focus on that one thing, and we're still seeing the benefits for that today.
And through that decision, the most important thing that we realized is how important it is to communicate with everybody in your supply chain, everybody around you, whether it's a customer, a retail customer, a store owner, a distributor, a chef, or even somebody that you're talking to on social media. Transparency and honesty and open communication really moves mountains in this industry. So slide, please. You even need to communicate through failures, and that's where we found that we really built loyal and long-standing relationships by accepting the mistakes that we made, communicating about them openly, and finding solutions together with our partners. So, as you saw from a couple slides back, our first packaging was that really ugly white bottle. We even tried to fix it with a sticker for a limited amount of time. Eventually we realized, right, fail quickly, find a solution. We had to go to a clear small jar. We did that, but it was crazy expensive. These jars are expensive. It's expensive to take the tahini out of a big 40-pound bucket and fill it in here. And we were desperate. So Jackie scoured Israel. We finally found a plastic factory on a kibbutz. We checked the bottles. We brought them to the manufacturer. We said, can you please fill them? They said yes. We were super excited. We're like, thousands of cases, send them over. We're really excited to get going with this. So when they arrived, we noticed, they were the plastic was a little thin. They were missing a lid, a film between the lid and the bottle. And we couldn't ship them, which is how we get our product to most of the retailers across the country. We shipped out the orders that we had ready, and every single one of the accounts gave us a call and said, that package you just sent us is an explosion of tahini, and FedEx won't even leave it at our doorpost. You can even see a picture here. This was to one of our small distributors in retail, and they just called us and sent us this picture. What are we supposed to do with this? So we told them the truth. We told them exactly what was happening, why we were committed to changing our packaging, the efforts that we took, and we asked them a favor. We said, we'll refund you your money. Can you just give us a little bit of time to get back into the clear jars that we know are safe and see if we can remedy this? And believe it or not, because we were so open, honest, and really proactive about the issue, every single one of the retailers held our spot on the shelves. And if you're familiar with the retail market, it's really hard to ask them to forego a sale of another product to save space for yours. And I really attest, or really, give credit to the idea that when you're open and honest and proactively communicating with people, you're bound to create relationships where people are willing to help you back. And that's one of, if not the most important thing in my part of the business is open and honest communication.
Another subject of communication, our sixth belief, is the importance of education. We believe that you should never stop teaching and that education is everything. This slide didn't show up so well. It's all right. It's actually a brochure that we use to talk about how sesame has been cultivated as far back as 5,000 BCE to show the historical relevance and really just like beautiful imagery about sesame. And that today, tahini is an ingredient that's good for more than just hummus. So that's really at the crux of our messaging. Thank you. So as Amy talked about a couple of minutes ago, we got so many questions at the beginning. What is tahini? That's really hard when you're selling tahini. What is tahini? What's in tahini? How is tahini made? Very simple questions that people didn't know. And so it showed us actually that while we thought that we had a great product, we were actually selling into markets that were a little bit underprepared, unaware. And so it's difficult enough to sell a product that people already want, but how do you sell in a product that perhaps people don't know that they want yet or don't know that they need? So we, kind of looked to some of our heroes like Sabra Hummus and Palm Wonderful, two amazing companies that are started by some pretty brilliant Jewish business people as well. And we saw what they did with consumer education because hummus was not a staple dip, 15 years ago. Definitely was not the sponsor dip of the NFL. And same thing with Palm Wonderful. Who knew what pomegranate juice was or how good pomegranates were for you? These were two companies that were very much focused on consumer education, but these are also two companies who had tens of millions of dollars for marketing in order to showcase all of that information. So we knew that we didn't have tens of millions of dollars, but what we did have was what we thought really interesting information to share, and some pretty influential people to share that information with. So at the end of the day, we saw this opportunity to educate the consumer as a positive. It wasn't a detriment to our company that perhaps it was not known or misunderstood, but rather gave us the opportunity to share content and to add value, because what we're seeing is that the consumer does want to know more, that they are looking for more knowledge about their product, whether that's a chef who wants to better understand the sourcing of his or her ingredients, or the consumer at home that wants to know what ingredients are in that product and where that product's coming from. So what we focus on in terms of our customer education is showcasing the versatility of tahini. We are committed to building an index of various recipes of ways that you can use the product. Again, it is good for so much more than hummus. We're talking smoothies, frozen yogurt, pancakes, drizzle it on your Greek yogurt, mix it in your oatmeal. If you want a creamy soup, consider tahini instead of a creamer. You can make bread out of it, yes.
Anybody else? Yes. What do you know about tahini?
Yeah. Right, thank you.
Who has a question?
Yeah, hold on, I'm coming over. We were just sharing different ways you can use tahini.
We're not up to question.
Yeah. Paula Scheuer does have a
Scheuer's
cookbook.
a good friend of ours.
She is a good friend. Yeah. So that's one way that has really, that we've been able to educate is by showcasing the versatility, especially in this world where food education is 24/7. There's 10 different TV channels and all of these Instagram profiles and magazines, all just dedicated to food. So that's really given us the opportunity for consumer education, as well as some of this new information that really was not known about tahini before we started talking about it. Where do sesame seeds come from?
Anybody know where they grow?
Africa, right? They do grow in Africa. A lot of people think that sesame is grown in the Middle East because tahini is a staple condiment there. But historically what happened was it moved through the spice trade through that region. And so that's how the Middle East came to acquire sesame, and they were the ones that then pressed it into this, milled it into tahini. So it's been really exciting. to be able to share that type of information with our customers about what sesame is, where it comes from, where it's grown, because we're giving value to our customers in a way that they're then able, especially in the food service industry, that they're able to share with their patrons. It is very popular now and very common for restaurants to speak to where their ingredients are coming from the eggs on this farm or this dairy, or getting the chicken from this source. So we've been able to empower our customers with that power of knowledge. So again, we believe in never stopping to teach, and that education is everything.
And I'm so glad actually that you mentioned Paula Scheuer, because it really speaks to this overarching idea, and frankly just how lucky we got when we started this industry by connecting with people like Paula Scheuer and other influencers, chefs, bloggers across the country. But the story really goes, I recently connected with a coffee shop in Philadelphia called Cafe Olay. It's owned by an awesome Israeli woman named Geula, and she's been using our tahini for a couple years. She was one of the really tough ones when two American girls walked into her cafe and said, "We have great tahini for you from Israel." And she goes, "It's not even called tahini, it's called trina, so don't even talk to me," right? But I said, we were catching up, and she goes, "What's going on?" And I said, "We're in our 4th year of business. We're so excited. It's been such a roller coaster." And she goes, "Mazal tov, that's really the accomplishment, because it just takes 2 years to build trust with your customers. The first 2 years of any business is building up your foundation of trust. And year 3, you can really grow on that. Year 4, start knocking it home. And what everybody says, year 5, try to break even." So we're working on that path. But what we realized is that 2 years is really hard to accomplish. To build trust across a national level in just 2 years would have been impossible, or rather just very expensive for us to accomplish on our own. And what we've got lucky with is that chefs and bloggers and cookbook authors embraced our tahini, because it was one of the only available quality tahinis in the States, and really helped give credibility and helped tell their customers and their friends and their communities that look to them for influence that our tahini is better. For instance, we work with an amazing mensch named Michael Solomonov. He's the owner of Zahav Restaurant and Dizengoff Hummus restaurants growing around the country. He was one of our first customers, one of the best restaurants in Philadelphia, an Israeli restaurant, and he really gave us a shot, because he said, "I don't like my tahina, I don't know where it's coming from. If you're bringing good tahina from Israel, I'm in." It's really a huge inspiration to us. About a couple weeks after we made our first delivery to him, he was interviewed for the Wall Street Journal, and he shared a couple of recipes. And the person writing the article asked, "You're saying all these ingredients. Tell me, what tahini do you use?" And Michael said Soom, because it was true. We'd been working with him for all of 3 weeks. We got 60 orders to our website, and it was the first time we ever got an order on our website, and let alone the first time we got more than one order at once. So it really took us a while to figure out, how to manage that reach. But what it showed us was that chefs are much more credible than we are, right? We could try to, explain or yell from the rooftops, "Our tahini is wonderful," but when somebody of credibility and influence says that for you, it's really invaluable. So we've invested a lot of time and effort into relationships with influential people that understand food much better than we do. Along those lines, chefs, their influence on the market, and maybe you can find comparables in whatever market you're in, are the ones that are really helping us to educate consumers. Maybe most people, had never had tahini before, but now they get to try tahini at one of their favorite restaurants. It's invaluable to explain why somebody with more reach than you is worth the investment for them to help share your message. And of course, bloggers, they grow really sincere and personal relationships with their followers. So find the right bloggers, share your product with them, and really, don't beat your head over the stairs trying to scream from the rooftops. Ask other people with larger reaches from you to help you grow. And that has been a really, really important aspect of our business growth.
Yeah, so just to summarize, the last slide was just reiterating our 6 beliefs. One is next slide, is to listen to your discovery process, know what you don't know and ask. Don't be afraid of problems, solve them. Do one thing well and commit to it. Communicate, even your failures, and never stop teaching, because sharing is everything.
But ultimately, we have to give credit to our father, who has taught us the most about business. In one very nice sentence, it always takes longer and costs more money, so just be prepared. He's also taught us that the greater the risk, the greater the return. Never compromise your values. First impression is a lasting impression, and riding a bicycle can solve many of the world's problems. Thank you guys so much for
Okay, we have time for
story.
2 questions. Does anyone have a question?
We have one back there, and then we'll come here.
Hi, my name is Malka Skolnick from the Bold Edge. I have a key question that other people might also have. Regarding Instagram or getting influencers to promote your product, is that something that is that a monetary exchange, or is it something, what are they getting from you that is making them want to promote your product?
That's a great question. We've actually never paid a blogger or an Instagram influencer to talk about our product. The exchange has been very sincere and organic, saying, we'd just like for you to try our product. If you decide you like it and write about it, thanks so much. I think one of the unique things that we have to offer is that the product is different, and we provide value to the blogger in that they get to introduce something new to their followers. So we love working with bloggers. We sample very liberally, and we send product to people. We'll follow up with extra product if we see that they've been making tahini recipes. But our exchange has always been the product, not monetary swaps. Which
Anyone
is a
else?
pretty unique foray into working with bloggers. It's pretty different. Yeah?
Here, hold on.
I think that's the ringer.
Hi, I was curious if you had any regulatory hurdles bringing food into this country, FDA problems. I mean, that seems complicated, but it didn't sound like that was one of your hurdles.
Thank God it really has not been, but that was a part of our due diligence process when finding the right manufacturer abroad. We found some phenomenal manufacturers in Israel that we would have loved to do business with, smaller scale facilities that just didn't have their FDA regulatory processes in place. So the manufacturer that we do work with is FDA approved, but that's not to say that there isn't a process once the product comes here that it does go through an FDA check, and we just allocate ourselves enough time in our importing schedule to make sure that if it does get held up and they needed a second check, that that we're okay. But
We learned that from experience.
yeah.
We had one more question over on the left side or right side of the room, if she still wants to ask. Do you still want to ask a question?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Here.
We'll be around after also, and we'd love to talk more.
You were talking about bloggers, contacting bloggers. I'm curious, how do you go about contacting them? Do you first try to find the right match for your business, because there's so many different bloggers and they have very different audiences? So, and also, do you have to contact a lot of them to get a response?
Yeah, I mean, early on, we mostly just contacted small bloggers that might have had a little bit more followers than we did, because we really wanted to provide value and find bloggers that were comparable to our business growth, right? If you repost us, the opportunity for cross collaboration, really speaks numbers. And so we wanted to find people that we could add value to in terms of not being able to give them money, but giving them something interesting to talk about. So size was really important for us when we were first starting out. We also, check for, it's as simple as looking for somebody that has pretty photography. Maybe somebody that's already posted recipes about tahini, but we know has never tried Soom. So they're familiar with the product, but we can introduce them to something new. It's a great question. Interns are amazing, and college students understand social media, are much more involved in it even than we are, and we're on the young end of all this. So I really encourage people to think about what would their dream, post be from a blogger, and scour the internet and see who's posting about things like that, and We reach out by email, or a lot of times we also just proactively start a cross collaboration by maybe reposting one of their pictures and giving them access to the followers that we've gathered. And that really starts the conversation. Hey, we love this tahini recipe. Have you ever tried our tahini? If not, can we send you a sample? That was our strategy. That's a great question. So she asked, what does the name Soom mean? Soom means sesame in Hebrew. So Soom Foods is the name of the company. Maybe you've heard of Rehov Soom Sesame Street. Although our last name, our maiden names, does end with a Z, we're Zeidelman girls, and so everybody calls us Zoom. So practically a Mazda commercial.
Hold on, I'm coming.
First of all, thank you so much. It was very interesting. I wanted to ask, you actually made up the recipe or you got a ready recipe?
That's a great question. We had access to a unique seed, actually. It's a seed from Ethiopia called white humera sesame. Since Omri was a distributor in the tahini industry, he's since gone up the supply chain and now works in exporting sesame seeds to manufacturers in Israel. So what's unique about our product is that it's 100% Ethiopian tahini, where a lot of other tahinis on the market are blended, but we did not create the recipe for this. We worked with our manufacturer on the recipe. We, with limited resources, really wanted to focus our time and our resources, time and money, on sales and marketing. And so we left to people that were much more familiar with manufacturing, especially tahini manufacturing, to help us create or really provide us with the right product. So we had taste attributes, and qualities that we were looking for, and we worked with a manufacturer to roast the seeds a certain amount of time, press them, and etc., and created the product together with the manufacturer. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.